Hello! I would be very pleased if you would like the video. Subscribe so you don't miss new videos every day that will help you relax. I'm also curious where you are listening to me from and what time it is now. Write it in the comments. Enjoy watching! The first light of dawn filtered through the rice paper screens of the modest samurai residence. Morning mist clung to the garden, curling around the carefully raked stones like ghostly serpents. Hiroshi, a samurai of middle rank, rose silently, his movements deliberate and measured, a ritual passed down through generations. The world outside was quiet, yet he felt the weight of the day pressing upon him, a burden of honor and duty that never slumbered. He washed his face with water drawn from a wooden bucket by the garden's koi pond. Each splash was a baptism, a reminder that a samurai's body was a temple, a vessel for discipline and strength. Hiroshi donned his kimono with care, the dark indigo fabric reflecting the subtle morning light. He knelt on the tatami mat, eyes closed, and whispered a brief prayer to his ancestors, seeking guidance and protection. Breakfast was humble: steamed rice, pickled vegetables, and a small portion of grilled fish. Yet Hiroshi ate with profound mindfulness, savoring each bite, aware that every meal was sustenance for both body and spirit. As he ate, his mind wandered briefly to the upcoming inspection of the Lord's armory, where weapons and armor would be scrutinized with exacting precision. The thought sharpened his focus, for a samurai's honor could be measured by his readiness and appearance, as much as by his skill with a blade. The morning sun climbed higher, casting long shadows over the courtyard. Hiroshi's training began with kata, fluid, silent movements of sword and body, performed with rigorous attention to detail. Each strike, each stance, carried the weight of centuries. The clatter of wooden swords echoed against the walls, a rhythm that mirrored his heartbeat, a cadence of discipline and intent. Sweat dampened his forehead, yet he did not falter. For a samurai, mastery was not a destination but a lifelong journey, a path walked with unwavering resolve. By mid-morning, Hiroshi had fastened his wakizashi at his waist and slung the katana across his back. The courtyard gates creaked as he stepped onto the gravel path, each footfall deliberate, measured. The village lay shrouded in a gentle haze, smoke rising from chimneys as farmers tended their rice paddies. Children paused in their chores to glance at him with a mixture of awe and fear, for the presence of a samurai was a constant reminder of the fragile line between order and chaos. His first duty was the inspection of the Lord's armory. The path to the castle wound through bamboo groves, the leaves whispering secrets to the wind. Hiroshi's mind wandered briefly to tales of battles past, clashes that had forged his clan's name in fire and blood. He recalled the feel of steel against steel, the scent of blood and incense mingling in a fog of memory. But today's task was different. It was about precision, care, and unwavering attention to detail. At the armory, Hiroshi knelt before rows of gleaming swords and polished armor, inspecting each piece with meticulous scrutiny. A single scratch on a blade could reflect poorly upon the household, and Hiroshi's pride would not allow such negligence. He ran his fingers along the hilt of a katana, tracing the intricate patterns in the ray skin, feeling the pulse of history embedded in its grip. His eyes caught the reflection of sunlight on steel, and for a fleeting moment, he felt a connection with every samurai who had drawn this blade in honor and despair. With the inspection complete, Hiroshi's duties turned to the village itself. A minor dispute between two farmers required his presence. Words had failed them, and only the shadow of authority could restore balance. He approached with calm determination, his voice measured but firm. "Peace must be preserved," he declared. The farmers bowed their heads, recognizing not only his rank but the moral weight he carried. Conflict dissolved into uneasy truce, and Hiroshi continued his patrol, eyes scanning the horizon, ears attuned to the slightest rustle in the groves. A samurai's vigilance never waned. As noon approached, the sun climbed high and oppressive. Hiroshi paused at a small shrine by a river, the water flowing clear and cold. He washed his hands, feeling the current slip through his fingers like time itself. Kneeling, he offered a silent prayer for protection, for his comrades, and for the village that depended on the delicate balance of duty and honor. The wind carried whispers of ancient spirits, and Hiroshi felt their presence, fleeting but potent, like a shadow that walked beside him, guiding his path. The afternoon sun cast a golden haze over the village as Hiroshi returned from the shrine, the heat pressing against his armor like a living weight. Yet discomfort was a companion a samurai learned to bear without complaint. He entered the training yard where fellow retainers practiced. Their wooden swords struck against each other with sharp, rhythmic clacks, and the air was thick with sweat, determination, and the scent of oiled wood. C.E. Hiroshi joined them, his movements precise and fluid, each swing and thrust an extension of discipline, instinct, and years of relentless practice. The training was not merely physical. Hiroshi's instructor, an elderly samurai whose face was carved by decades of battle, emphasized strategy, patience, and the mind's sharpness. A blade is only as strong as the hand that wields it and the mind that guides it, he intoned. Hiroshi nodded, absorbing the lesson, feeling the echo of his ancestors in every movement, the weight of expectation pressing both on his shoulders and in his heart. Each strike carried honor, each misstep, shame. After training, Hiroshi attended a council with his lord. The great hall was expansive, wooden beams darkened with age, walls lined with calligraphy and banners of the clan. The lord discussed security, land disputes, and alliances with neighboring clans. Hiroshi listened intently, offering counsel when appropriate, his mind balancing loyalty, honor, and the practicality of strategy. He noted subtle expressions and unspoken tensions, for a samurai's role was as much to read men as to wield a sword. As shadows lengthened across the hall, Hiroshi stepped outside to inspect the perimeter. The village paths were quiet, save for the soft cries of children returning home and the distant clatter of carts. His hand rested on the hilt of his katana, a reassuring weight. He paused at the edge of the bamboo grove, sensing movement, a fleeting shadow. Instinct honed through years of vigilance sharpened his senses. But it was only a fox, darting into the underbrush, and Hiroshi allowed himself a rare, quiet smile. Even in vigilance, he found fleeting moments of peace. The late afternoon brought the ceremonial tea ritual, a practice of grace and reflection. Hiroshi knelt beside the low wooden table, hands folded as the tea master poured steaming green tea into delicate bowls. The fragrance rose, earthy and calming, grounding him. Each sip was deliberate, a meditation in motion, reminding him that even amidst duty and potential violence, serenity must be preserved. The ritual strengthened not only the body but the spirit, reinforcing the balance every samurai sought to maintain. Nightfall approached, painting the sky in deep indigos streaked with crimson. Hiroshi returned to the castle gates, where torches flickered, casting long, quivering shadows on the stone walls. The wind carried the scent of fallen leaves and the distant murmur of the river. He paused, hands resting on the hilt of his katana, listening. Even in the calm, a samurai's senses remain alert. Danger could emerge from the smallest rustle, the quietest step. A messenger arrived, breathless, bearing news of a band of rogue warriors threatening a nearby village. Hiroshi's heart tightened. Duty demanded action. The villagers were defenseless, and the honor of his lord, as well as his own, was entwined with their safety. He swiftly donned his armor, the polished metal cold against his skin, and adjusted his helmet. Each strap, each knot, was a ritual, a preparation of both body and mind for the challenge ahead. As he rode through the moonlit forest, the sound of hooves mingled with the whispering bamboo. Shadows stretched and twisted, dancing across the narrow path. Hiroshi's mind focused, recalling the training of decades, the strategies taught by masters, and the unspoken code of the samurai. Courage, loyalty, and honor above all. The adrenaline sharpened his senses. Every leaf rustle, every snapping twig, became a note in the silent symphony of impending battle. They reached the village on the edge of night. Fires from torches revealed the rogue warriors already terrorizing homes. Hiroshi dismounted, moving with a quiet, lethal grace. His katana gleamed under the moonlight, a silver arc of resolve. He approached the foremost warrior, eyes locking with his opponent's. Time slowed. The clash was sudden and fierce, steel ringing against steel, sparks leaping like fireflies into the night. Each movement was precise, each strike purposeful, guided by years of practice, instinct, and honor. The battle was swift but decisive. Hiroshi's skill, tempered by discipline, prevailed. The rogue warriors fled into the forest, leaving the village unharmed. Hiroshi knelt briefly amidst the aftermath, catching his breath, listening to the villagers' whispers of gratitude. relief mixed with exhaustion, yet there was no arrogance, only quiet fulfillment. Duty had been done, honor preserved. He sheathed his katana, the click of steel echoing softly, a seal of his unwavering code. Returning to the castle under the silver glow of the moon, Hiroshi reflected on the day. The rituals, the discipline, the moments of quiet reflection, and the pulse of battle. He understood that the life of a samurai was a delicate balance, the serenity of tea and meditation intertwined with the chaos of combat. The personal struggles of conscience weighed against the demands of duty. As he entered his quarters, he knelt once more, offering prayers of gratitude and humility. The day had tested him, yet it had also reaffirmed the path he had chosen. Hiroshi removed his armor, the metallic weight replaced by the soft fabric of his kimono. He sat by the window, gazing at the moonlit garden where koi glided silently through the water, reflecting the same calm he sought within himself. Sleep would come soon, but tomorrow, the cycle would begin anew. Discipline, duty, honor, and the eternal pursuit of mastery. For a samurai, the path never ends, it only deepens with each rising sun. Before dawn, long before the village stirred, Hiroshi awoke again, not from necessity, but from habit and devotion. The rhythm of a samurai's life was dictated by the rising sun, yet his body had learned to anticipate it. He moved quietly through his room, the tatami soft under his bare feet, the lantern light casting shadows that seemed alive with memories of ancestors. Each morning began with the ritual of purification, washing the face, hands, and arms in cold water, the shock awakening not only the body but the mind. Breakfast remained simple yet sacred. Rice steamed to perfection, miso soup steaming in a small lacquered bowl, and pickled vegetables arranged as carefully as any sword in the armory. Hiroshi ate slowly, with deliberate mindfulness, acknowledging the hands that prepared the food and the effort required to cultivate it. Each bite was nourishment and meditation, teaching the lesson that sustenance itself was intertwined with gratitude, patience, and discipline. Following breakfast, Hiroshi devoted an hour to writing letters and reviewing orders from his lord. Brush and ink flowed across paper, the characters a dance of precision and elegance. Samurai were not merely warriors, they were scholars, strategists, and keepers of knowledge. Hiroshi's mind worked in tandem with his hand, tracing the ink strokes with reverence. Decisions made on paper could shape lives, territories, and honor as surely as any duel. Training resumed at mid-morning, but not as a ritual performed in isolation. Hiroshi paired with younger samurai, observing their technique, offering correction and guidance. Each kata, each parry, was executed with extreme attention to detail, emphasizing both efficiency and elegance. The clash of wood and steel echoed through the courtyard, but beneath the sound was a rhythm, almost musical, reflecting years of discipline, patience, and the pursuit of perfection. Sweat poured, yet Hiroshi welcomed it. It was the tangible proof of effort and the bridge between body and spirit. After training, the village called. Hiroshi walked along paths lined with wooden homes, rice paddies, and flowering cherry trees. He observed the villagers, merchants selling fresh produce, children practicing archery with miniature bows, women weaving baskets or preparing food. Each interaction was an opportunity to understand, guide, and protect. A samurai's presence was both shield and symbol. Fear and respect walked side by side. Hiroshi paused by young boys struggling with a heavy load of firewood. Stooping, he helped, and the boy's eyes widened in awe. It was in these small acts that Hiroshi felt the quiet power of his role, the blending of strength, service, and compassion. The sun climbed higher, casting shifting patterns through the leaves of the bamboo grove. Hiroshi walked the village paths with measured steps, observing not only the rhythm of daily life but the subtle currents of tension beneath the surface. A merchant argued quietly with a customer, a farmer fretted over a failing crop, and a mother soothed a crying child. All were small struggles, yet each bore weight in the delicate balance of peace. A samurai's duty was not only to fight, but to sense the unseen and intervene with wisdom as well as strength. He paused at a small Shinto shrine on the village's edge, kneeling with the grace instilled by countless years of training. The wind whispered through the torii gates, carrying with it the faint scent of incense and fallen leaves. Hiroshi placed his hands together, eyes closed, and reflected on the duality of his life, the serenity of ritual and the ferocity of battle, the quiet contemplation of a brushstroke and the violent clash of steel. Life demanded mastery of both, for a samurai was incomplete without balance of spirit, mind, and body. After his meditation, Hiroshi inspected the village perimeter with deliberate precision. He walked the palisades, checked the gates, and spoke with guards, reinforcing vigilance and morale. The afternoon sun glinted off the tips of arrows and the polished edges of swords, a reminder that readiness was not an abstract concept, but a tangible, ever-present duty. Even the simplest patrol could reveal cracks in security, and even the smallest oversight could invite catastrophe. His eyes scanned every shadow, every movement, every detail, attuned like a hawk ready to strike. Training resumed again as late afternoon approached. Hiroshi paired with a younger samurai named Kenji, whose movements were eager but unrefined. The clash of their swords was punctuated by Hiroshi's calm corrections. Posture, balance, the subtle shift of weight from one foot to the other. A blade is more than steel, Hiroshi reminded him. It is an extension of your body, your mind, and your honor. Wield it with respect, or it will betray you. Sweat glistened on Kenji's forehead, yet he absorbed every word, every demonstration. The older samurai's heart swelled with quiet pride, knowing that the next generation carried the legacy forward. As shadows lengthened and the sun dipped lower, Hiroshi prepared for his most critical duty of the day, safeguarding the village against approaching threats. He donned his armor once more, the cool metal plates fitting against his body like a second skin, a shield woven from tradition, discipline, and years of practice. The katana rested at his side, its blade a gleaming arc of resolve. Each strap was tightened with reverent care, each knot a ritual binding him to his code. Tonight, he would test not only his skill, but the very principles that had shaped his life. The first stars pierced the indigo sky as Hiroshi positioned himself at the edge of the village. Moonlight gleamed off his katana, a silver streak against the darkness. The air was still, yet charged with anticipation, each breath a tether between patience and action. He scanned the surrounding forest, aware that the rogue warriors could strike at any moment. The life of a samurai demanded readiness, but also restraint. Rash action could bring ruin. A rustle among the bamboo caught his attention. Hiroshi crouched, muscles coiled like a spring. Shadowy figures emerged, clad in dark garb, moving with practiced stealth. They were mercenaries, opportunists seeking chaos. Hiroshi's eyes narrowed, calculating distance, strength, and possible strategies. In the silence of the night, the clash of honor and treachery became inevitable. He inhaled deeply, centering his mind. A samurai's blade was swift, but guided by clarity, not impulse. The confrontation began with a sudden charge. Hiroshi met the lead warrior with a precise thrust of his katana. Steel met steel, ringing sharp and clear against the night. Each movement was deliberate. Parry, strike, sidestep, combining grace and lethal efficiency. Sparks flew where blades clashed, a fleeting dance of fire in the moonlit darkness. He felt the rhythm of combat deep in his core, every instinct honed by decades of training. His opponents were skilled, yet Hiroshi's discipline and strategy prevailed. He moved like water, flowing around attacks, exploiting openings, forcing them into retreat. The village slept, unaware of the shadow drama unfolding beyond their gates. When the last rogue warrior fell back into the forest, Hiroshi lowered his blade, chest heaving. Silence returned, broken only by the rustling leaves and his own measured breaths. Duty had been fulfilled, yet the weight of responsibility lingered, pressing upon his shoulders even as the adrenaline ebbed. After the confrontation, Hiroshi walked through the village under the moon's gentle glow, inspecting the homes and gates. Nothing had been disturbed, no lives lost, a victory not only of skill but of vigilance, foresight, and unyielding resolve. The villagers, sensing the threat had passed, offered quiet bows of gratitude, their respect deepened by the samurai's presence. Hiroshi nodded in return, understanding that honor was inseparable from service, and courage inseparable from humility. He returned to the castle, shedding armor and bloodless sweat in a ritual of cleansing and reflection. Kneeling in his private chamber, Hiroshi offered thanks to the ancestors, the spirits, and the unseen forces that had guided his hand. The day had been long, its trials both physical and spiritual, yet he faced them with the calm pride of one bound to a path defined by duty, discipline, and honor. As he gazed at the moonlit garden, the koi swimming silently in the pond mirrored the serenity he sought within himself. Night had fully embraced the castle grounds. The moon hung high, casting silver light across the courtyard, illuminating the patterns of gravel and stone in the garden. Hiroshi sat quietly on the tatami, his katana sheathed nearby. The day's trials, rituals, training, patrols, and battle had left him physically weary but spiritually alert. In the stillness, he allowed himself to reflect, to examine the choices he had made, the paths he had walked, and the code that governed every action. He thought of his ancestors, whose names were etched into the history of the clan, whose sacrifices had paved the way for him. Their discipline, courage, and wisdom coursed through him like an invisible current. Hiroshi whispered their names softly, a prayer and an acknowledgement. The life of a samurai was never solitary. It was a continuum of generations, a river of honor flowing through blood and memory. Each act of duty was a note in a symphony composed over centuries. Hiroshi then contemplated his own humanity. Though trained to act with precision and composure, he felt the pangs of fear, doubt, and longing. The weight of responsibility pressed upon him, the lives of villagers, the reputation of his lord, the preservation of his own honor. Yet these burdens were neither oppressive nor unwelcome. They were the fire that tempered him, the force that shaped a man into a samurai. To embrace them was to embrace life itself. He rose slowly and walked to the window overlooking the garden. Moonlight glinted off the koi pond, reflecting 1,000 tiny points of silver. The trees swayed gently in the night breeze, whispering secrets of seasons past. Hiroshi allowed himself a rare smile, acknowledging the harmony he sought amid chaos, the fleeting serenity that balanced duty and desire. In that quiet moment, he felt the pulse of the world and his place within it, a life defined not by comfort or ease, but by purpose, discipline, and honor. Before sleep, he performed the final ritual of the day, a brief meditation, aligning body and mind, offering thanks for survival, guidance, and the lessons of the day. He knelt, head bowed, hands folded, breathing in rhythm with the night itself. The world outside was calm, yet full of unseen challenges. Tomorrow would demand vigilance once again. Hiroshi welcomed it, for the path of the samurai was eternal, its journey measured not in years or victories, but in the steadfast devotion to duty, courage, and honor. As he finally lay down, the moon's silver light bathing the room, Hiroshi felt a profound sense of fulfillment. Each day was a trial, a test, and an opportunity to honor the code that had defined his life. Sleep came gently, carrying him into dreams filled with memories of training, battles, and quiet moments by the koi pond. And in that darkness, he rested, knowing that with the rising sun, the endless cycle of discipline, service, and honor would begin anew. The early morning air was crisp, carrying the scent of dew-soaked grass and the faint aroma of smoke from the village hearths. Hiroshi rose once again before the sun, his body moving through the familiar motions of the day. Each morning brought with it a quiet meditation, a ritual of washing and preparing not only his body but his spirit. He inhaled deeply, letting the cold water wash over his hands and face, feeling the pulse of life in every drop. Today, he reflected on the fleeting nature of life, the inevitability of change, and the permanence of honor. After breakfast, Hiroshi walked through the village, observing the simple rhythms of life. Children chased one another along narrow paths, laughing as they dodged carts and bundles of firewood. A blacksmith hammered steadily at his forge, sparks flying like tiny stars, and a group of women carried baskets of freshly harvested vegetables, their chatter blending with the soft cries of birds. Hiroshi nodded in greeting to each, his presence a reminder of the balance between power and protection. He paused to help an elderly farmer lift a heavy sack of rice, their eyes meeting with unspoken gratitude. Training resumed as the sun rose higher, and Hiroshi led a session with younger samurai. He emphasized not only the mechanics of swordsmanship but the philosophy behind each movement. Your blade must follow your spirit, your mind, he instructed. Each swing was an expression of discipline, each stance a reflection of inner calm. He moved among his students, adjusting grips, correcting posture, demonstrating how fluidity and strength must coexist. Sweat dripped from brows, muscles burned, yet Hiroshi's patience never wavered. This was the forging of the next generation, the continuation of a legacy that spanned centuries. Midday brought a rare moment of reflection. Hiroshi visited the edge of the rice fields, watching the farmers at work. The rhythm of planting and tending mirrored his own discipline, the harmony of human effort with nature's cycles. He considered the fleeting beauty of a cherry blossom, the impermanence of life, and the lasting weight of duty. Each decision, each act of courage or restraint, was a thread in the tapestry of honor. Even the simplest moments could teach lessons if observed with mindful eyes. The late afternoon sun dipped low, casting a warm amber glow over the village rooftops. Hiroshi felt the familiar tension in his muscles, the anticipation of potential conflict sharpening his senses. He patrolled the perimeter once more, walking deliberately along the narrow dirt paths that wound between wooden homes and rice paddies. Each step was purposeful, each glance calculated. A samurai's vigilance was never optional. He noticed small details, a broken fence post, a distant figure moving too quietly, a shadow that did not belong, subtle signs that could mean life or death. Suddenly, the wind carried the unmistakable sound of armored footsteps. Rogue warriors emerged from the forest edge, their intent clear in the glint of their blades. Hiroshi drew his katana with a fluid motion, the steel whispering as it slid from the sheath. Moonlight reflected off the polished edge, a silver line ready to judge and protect. The first strike came swiftly, a test of reflexes and discipline. Hiroshi met it with a precise parry, feeling the reverberation through his arms, the tension of steel and intent interlocking like the threads of fate itself. The clash of blades echoed through the quiet village, sharp and rhythmic. Hiroshi moved with grace and deadly purpose, his footwork precise, his strikes measured. He thought not of the enemy as individuals, but of the duty he owed to the villagers, his lord, and the code that guided his every action. Each movement was deliberate, flowing between attack and defense, anticipation and reaction. Sparks flew where steel met steel, painting brief constellations in the shadowed air. Despite the danger, he felt a strange clarity, the culmination of years of training and discipline converging in this one decisive moment. Minutes stretched like hours as the battle unfolded. Hiroshi used strategy as much as strength, maneuvering his opponents into positions where their skill could not compensate for his experience. His mind was sharp, calculating angles, timing, and distance with unerring precision. One by one, the rogue warriors fell back, their morale broken by the seamless blend of technique and resolve. Hiroshi remained steady, never overextending, always conserving energy for the critical moment. Finally, with a final thrust and decisive maneuver, the last of the intruders fled into the dark forest, leaving the village untouched. As silence returned, Hiroshi stood amidst the quiet aftermath, breathing deeply. The villagers' homes were safe, their lives preserved by his vigilance and skill. Relief washed over him, tempered by humility and reflection. He sheathed his katana, the metallic whisper echoing softly in the night. Even in victory, a samurai measured his actions, understanding that life's fragility demanded both courage and restraint. He walked through the village paths, nodding quietly to those who dared glimpse the silent protector. His presence a shield that did not boast, only served. Returning to the castle, Hiroshi removed his armor, layer by layer, feeling the transition from warrior to man, from action to reflection. He knelt by the window overlooking the garden, moonlight glimmering on the koi pond. He allowed himself a moment of contemplation, considering the day, the trials, the victories, the lessons learned. Honor had been preserved, duty fulfilled, yet he knew that tomorrow would demand the same vigilance, the same devotion, the same balance between body, mind, and spirit. Night had fully settled, draping the castle and village in a velvety darkness. Hiroshi knelt before a small altar in his chamber, incense curling lazily toward the ceiling, carrying prayers and gratitude with it. The day's triumphs and trials settled over him like a gentle weight, reminding him that honor was not in victory alone, but in the disciplined choices that led to it. Each action, each decision, had been guided by the invisible code of the samurai, the bushido that flowed through his veins as surely as blood. He reflected on the villagers whose lives had been spared, their trust placed in his hands. Their safety was a quiet victory, one without applause, yet more profound than any battlefield glory. Hiroshi thought of the fleeting nature of life, of the cherry blossoms that bloomed and fell in a single season, and of the countless samurai who had walked this path before him. Mortality was certain. Honor, courage, and discipline were the measure of a life truly lived. Rising, he walked to the window overlooking the garden. Moonlight danced across the koi pond, reflecting silver ripples that reminded him of the delicate balance between stillness and motion. The rustle of leaves whispered like ancestral voices, and Hiroshi felt their presence, guiding, steadying, and judging. He allowed himself a quiet smile, understanding that serenity and vigilance were not opposites but companions, two sides of the same coin that defined a samurai's existence. Before sleep, Hiroshi performed the final ritual, a silent meditation, aligning body, mind, and spirit. His katana rested nearby, a constant reminder of the responsibilities and duties that would resonate with the dawn. He inhaled slowly, exhaling the day's tension, letting gratitude and humility fill him instead. Each heartbeat was a note in the enduring rhythm of life, a song that honored ancestors, the present, and the path yet to come. Lying on the tatami, Hiroshi gazed once more at the moonlit garden. The koi glided silently through the pond, the shadows of trees moving with a subtle grace. In the stillness, he felt complete, not in comfort, nor in recognition, but in the quiet fulfillment of having lived a day true to his code. Sleep came gently, carrying him into dreams where training, contemplation, and duty intertwined. The cycle of a samurai's life was eternal, each day a thread in the tapestry of honor, discipline, and courage that stretched across generations. Tomorrow, as the sun rose again, Hiroshi would rise with it, ready to face new challenges, to protect, to train, and to live a life defined not by fear or desire, but by unwavering devotion to the way of the samurai. And in that eternal rhythm, he would find both purpose and peace.